question and answers will begin after question period. There will be 5 minutes for those questions and answers. We will now move on to statements by members.
Members, the Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. November 25th marks the start of 16 days of action to end gender-based violence. This moment is supposed to be about moving beyond talk and delivering real action. Yet once again, the federal government has provided $0 in this year's budget to address the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, 2S LGBTQIA+ people, even after former Prime Minister recognized this violence as an ongoing genocide. In Winnipeg Centre, women, girls, and gender-diverse people continue to go missing and murdered. This is not a crisis we can acknowledge only in words. It demands immediate investment and urgent political will. The Liberal government must act now. That begins with funding life-saving community supports like the North End Women's Centre in Winnipeg and providing the resources Indigenous women and gender-diverse people have been calling for decades. Our communities deserve safety, dignity, and justice. Action must start today.
The Honourable Member for Labrador.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to highlight an important moment that speaks to the deep and historic trade ties between Canada and Europe. On November the 7th, in Pasaia in the Basque Country in Spain, the San Juan, a fully reconstructed 16th century Basque galleon, was launched with plans to sail it to Canada in 2027. The original San Juan was part of the transatlantic trade network linking Pasaia with Red Bay, Labrador, now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This trade, among the earliest between Europe and North America, carried not only goods such as whale oil and lumber, but also knowledge, technology, and partnership. The voyage of the San Juan reminds us that Labrador has long been a gateway of commerce and cooperation between countries. As Canada continues to strengthen its modern trade relationships with Europe, we can look to our shared maritime history for inspiration. Mr. Speaker, the San Juan stands as a powerful symbol of the enduring economic and cultural connections that continue to unite Canada and Europe.
The Honourable Member for Barrie South Innisfil.
As we begin the Christmas season, it's important to remember the spirit of giving and compassion that defines the time of year. In Barrie and Innisfil, local charities like Community for Kids, Christmas Cheer, Seniors Wish, the Salvation Army, our local churches, and the Rotary Clubs work tirelessly to support families, provide meals, and bring hope to those in need. Food banks in both Barrie and Innisfil have seen a demand increase and a rise in increase in use. Speaking with Barrie Food Bank Executive Director Karen Shu over the weekend, they've seen a 16% increase in usage year over year, and sadly, people who never imagined they would have to use the food bank now are. The same is true in Innisfil. By donating or volunteering, we can make a real difference in the lives of our neighbours and strengthen the bonds that make our communities so special. This Christmas, let's come together to share kindness and ensure that everyone can experience the joy of the season.
The Honourable Member for Guelph.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to celebrate Guelph's newest Nobel laureate, economist Dr. Peter Howitt. Born and raised in Guelph, he earned the 2025 Nobel Prize in Economics for his groundbreaking model of creative destruction, developed with Philippe Aghion. His path began at Victory Public School and then Guelph CVI, amazingly the same path as Dr. Donna Strickland, 2018 Nobel laureate in physics, the third woman in history to earn that honor. Guelph's Nobel roster also boasts Dr. David Card, Nobel laureate in economics in 2021 and graduate of John F. Ross High School. Dr. James Orbinski led Médecins Sans Frontières when it received the Nobel Prize for Peace in 1999. And this fall, Dr. Poilievre of the University of Guelph earned the Nobel Sustainability Trust Prize for his pioneering work as the founder of DNA barcoding. From local classrooms to global acclaim, Guelph and Canada could not be prouder. These brilliant minds remind us, when we invest in education, we invest in world-changing ideas.
The Honourable Member for Brantford, Brant South, Six Nations.
Over the last several months, I traveled across Canada on a jail, not bail, town hall tour, listening to thousands of Canadians pour out their fear and frustration. Everywhere I go, Canadians say the same thing. They no longer trust their justice system. And who can blame them? Criminals are laughing at law enforcement, knowing they'll be arrested in the morning and back on the street by lunch. There is no deterrence, no consequence, no accountability, because that Liberal government took it all away. That's why I launched a national petition to strengthen our laws to keep violent repeat offenders behind bars. Over 66,000 Canadians responded, demanding safety and real consequences. If these Liberals truly cared about ending the crime crisis they created, they would repeal the principle of restraint, restore mandatory minimums, and support Conservatives' Jail, Not Bail Act. Anything less is a choice. Either stand with the criminals or to prioritize community safety.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Le Pays d'en Haut. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honour Mr. André Jeunesse for his 35 years of community service. André was born in North Wentworth in the Pays d'en Haut. He has spent his life serving all the citizens in his community. In addition to his municipal career, he has been a youth centre educator and has even taken in several children with his wife Lise when these young people had no home or hope. Elected as a municipal councillor in 1990, he then served 6 terms as mayor of Wentworth North and 2 terms as prefect, elected by universal vote of the MRC des Pays d'en Haut from 2017 to 2025. He also represented his municipalities. André has successfully completed several major projects during his career, but I remain convinced that the sports centre is the one he is most proud of. He was able to rally 9 municipalities around a $45 million collective project, and this will be his legacy for future generations. After 35 years, the 2nd of November was his last day as an elected official, and I would like to wish you, my friend André, on my own behalf and on behalf of all the members of this House, a happy retirement. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Red Deer.
Mr. Speaker, big news for Red Deer as the 51st IIHF World Junior Championships are returning to Alberta. The World Junior isn't just a hockey tournament, it's where legends are born. Sid the Kid, Connor McDavid, the next generation of superstars. These young talents light up the ice. The last time Red Deer hosted was all the way back in 1995, and Canada won gold. Now, over 30 years later, we're bringing hockey back to the heartland to chase gold. 14 thrilling games will be played at the Marchant Crane Centrium. So let's pack the stands in red and white, cheer on Team Canada, and show the world our Central Alberta hospitality. I know our boys will battle it out, skate fast, shoot hard. The future of hockey is coming to Red Deer. See you at the rink in 2027. Go Canada, go!
The Honourable Member for Surrey Newton.
Mr. Speaker, today marks the 350th anniversary of the martyrdom of 9th Sikh Guru, Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji, a towering figure not only in the Sikh history but in the history of humanity. His supreme sacrifice to defend freedom of conscience and to protect the rights of those persecuted is a timeless lesson in moral courage. Long before the world spoke of the universal human rights, Guru Tegh Bahadur Sahib Ji stood firmly for equality, justice, and interfaith solidarity. His legacy is a reminder that the strength of Canada is rooted in these very values. Today we honor his memory and we reaffirm our commitment to safeguarding human rights and religious freedom for all.
The Honourable Member for Peace River Westlock.
Mr. Speaker, as the MP for the honey capital of Canada, I'm pleased to rise today to celebrate Canada's bees and their beekeepers. Canada's beekeeping industry operates over 800,000 colonies, pollinating 75% of our food and feed crops. From wild blueberries in Cape Breton to the yellow canola seeds of Peace River country to the apple orchards of BC and Quebec, the map that we eat is drawn by the mighty bee. These tiny marvels with their tireless buzz carry tomorrow's harvest through the skies. And when winter bites, and when faced with habitat loss and varroa mites, Canada's 10,000 beekeepers rise to the occasion with skill, grit, determination to deliver the world's best tasting honey and food on our table. Every jar of honey is a small victory, every pollinated field a bountiful blessing, and every beekeeper a patriot in a veil. To our beekeepers here today, the quiet backbone of our food security And on behalf of a grateful nation, we thank you.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We learnt the death of the great journalist Madeleine Poulain, who did not initially intend to pursue a career in journalism. She wanted to teach, and that's what she did, Mr. Speaker. Through her professionalism, she ensured that generations of Quebecers and Francophone individuals across Canada were better educated on social issues, politics and current events in general. In short, she helped make us all better Quebecers and Canadians, better informed and better equipped to participate in democratic life. Through her rigour, she raised the bar for all information broadcasting professionals in television, radio and newspaper. Through her determination, she has inspired dozens of women to enter the demanding world of journalism, just as she herself was inspired by the great Judith Jasmin, with whom she now shares the title of pioneer. Through her example, Madeleine Poulain has taught us to remain curious, to respect the facts and protect trusted information sources. You will continue to inspire not only women, but all those who want to become journalists with passion, just like you. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby Central.
Monsieur le Président, on November 25th, we observe the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, a reminder that gender-based violence continues to threaten women, girls, and gender-diverse people across Canada. And on November 27th, we mark the 8th anniversary of the historical apology delivered to the two LGBTQI+ Canadians, an affirmation that equality, dignity, and inclusion must guide us always. Budget 2025 turns the promise into action, with over $660 million over 5 years to advance women's equality, support the two LGBTQI+ Canadians, and expand Canada's fight against gender-based violence. To Emma, an openly queer student from Burnaby Central, who wrote me, urging that we keep fighting for the most vulnerable, who still face discrimination and harassment simply because of who they are. On this side of the House, we hear you, we see you, and we'll defend your rights every single day. Merci.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Member for Battleford, Lloydminster, Meadow Lake.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government is the most expensive government in Canadian history. Every dollar this Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians, and they are the ones driving up the cost of everything. Food prices are up 3.4% this year, and they are rising 40% faster here than in the United States. Canadians can't stretch their paychecks any further. Parents are struggling just to put food on the table, and food insecurity has reached truly alarming levels. But when the Liberals had a chance to lower food costs, they refused. Instead, the Prime Minister is pouring fuel on the fire with the deficit of $78 billion. And he is hiking the industrial carbon tax, yet another hidden food tax. These increased input costs make groceries even more expensive for Canadians. It's time to scrap the hidden taxes and make groceries affordable again.
The Honourable Member for Victoria.
I rise today to acknowledge the passing of one of Canada's great military historians, my stepfather, Donald Edmund Graves. Don served as a military historian with the Government of Canada before later founding his own firm and advising governments, private organizations, and filmmakers in Britain and North America. He was the author or editor of nearly 24 books on many topics, but his greatest passion was the War of 1812. As Canada's leading expert on that conflict that defined our country so early on, Don advised the US, Canadian, and British governments on the war's bicentennial celebrations in 2012. From Don, I learned a love of history and strategy, as well as deep respect for the women and men who wear Canada's uniform. I also gained a lifelong appreciation for the importance of good friends, country living, and a family dog. It is fitting that such a great military historian died on Remembrance Day, Mr. Speaker. And today I extend my condolences to Don's son Matthew, his extended family, friends, and colleagues in the military history community. His contributions will be missed, but never forgotten.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
It's always a good day to be Brookfield, the Prime Minister's former company under this Liberal government. The latest treat, a $500 million contract for the European Space Agency to create good-paying jobs in Europe. But it gets better. The 50% of the campus, the Harwell campus, where the European Space Agency is located, is owned by Brookfield. And let's not forget, Brookfield is Canada's #1 tax dodger. Through various shell corporations in the Caribbean, they avoided paying $6.5 billion in taxes. Meanwhile, 2.2 million Canadians line up at food banks every single month, and the unemployment rate is 6.9%. This government's answer? Let's make Brookfield richer. Well, I can tell you this. Conservatives will not stop. Every single day we will expose this kind of corruption, and every single day we will fight to make sure it stops.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie Etaqueton. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to pay tribute to two women who have left their mark on municipal life in my riding of La Prairie Etaqueton. Elected as City Councillor in Sainte Catherine in 1990, Ms. Jocelyne Bates was subsequently elected Mayor for 31 consecutive years. She was also the first woman to hold the position of Prefect of the Roussillon RCM. As for Ms. Lise Poisson, after serving as a councillor for the city of Saint-Mathieu for 10 years, she went on to become its mayor for 2 decades. Both women represent public service at its finest, selfless, ever-present, consistent, legendary generosity, and unfailing honesty. Both have helped their towns grow into harmonious, Greece and inclusive places. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of myself and all the people of La Prairie Etaqueton, I would like to thank Jocelyne and Lise for their dedication, vision and service. Sainte Catherine and Saint-Mathieu owe them a great deal.
The Honourable Member for Elmwood-Transcona.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister campaigned on the concerns of Canadians regarding the trade war with the United States. The Prime Minister even billed himself as a so-called master negotiator who would secure a deal with President Trump by July 21st of this year. When asked this past weekend about the progress of the trade negotiations, he replied, "Who cares?" Well, Mr. Speaker, I care, and the hardworking men and women of Elmwood-Transcona care. We have seen tons of good-paying Canadian jobs flee to the United States following Trump's tariff threats. Is this Prime Minister prepared to look workers in the eye and tell them he does not care about their livelihoods? Canadians deserve a more urgent approach at the negotiating table, and I urge the Prime Minister to take these trade negotiations seriously and stand up for Canada. Conservatives, stand ready to deal with President Trump and take the trade war seriously, because we do care about Canadians.
The Honourable Member for New Westminster, Burnaby-Meliorville.
Mr. Speaker, young people will build our future. We need them to. We don't have an option. Our country will be relying on them, so it's critical that they've got the support that they need. To the young Canadians, your voice matters and you are valued. I encourage you to be clear and organized about your priorities and become a leader in an area you're passionate about. Young generation brings a refreshing perspective to politics, and I'm happy that today we're joined by members of the Young Politicians of Canada who play an important role in shaping youth-centered policy around the world. The House of Commons represents all Canadians, and that means it needs to represent young people and the problems that they face, whether that's working towards home ownership, addressing climate change, supporting higher education, or navigating how AI will affect our world. These are concerns that are critical to address if we want to see our new generation thrive. Thank you.
Oral questions, questions orales, the Honourable Leader Pierre Poilievre.
The Prime Minister was elected on a platform where he said that American tariffs were an existential threat to Canada. But nonetheless, this weekend, journalists asked him if negotiations are continuing, and he said, "Who cares?" He said, "Who cares? I don't care. He doesn't seem to care about aluminum sector or forestry workers. Is that really the message he wants to send to Quebec workers, that he doesn't care? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, last week, the member for Prince George Peace River Northern Rockies took up MAGA accusations stating that immigrants slowed down the Canadian economy. I think Canadians deserve to know if the leader of the opposition approves of those comments. Mr. Speaker, my question was for the Prime Minister, who is here in Ottawa, who said yesterday, when asked about jobs for people in aluminum, steel, forestry, and many other sectors who are suffering because of the Prime Minister's failures and his broken promises. And he said, who cares? How is it that the Prime Minister doesn't care about the fact that people are losing their jobs in Beauce, in the Saguenay, and elsewhere in Canada because of his failures? How is it that all he had to say was ask, who cares? The Honourable Government House Leader. Speaking of serious matters, Mr. Speaker.
In English. Last week, the member for Prince George Peace River Northern Rockies repeated MAGA claims that immigration and immigrants are a drag on the Canadian economy. I think Canadians want to know from the Leader of the Opposition.
Not from the top, but let's take a little pause and let the noise level drop a bit, and may the House Leader may continue.
So the member said, repeated MAGA claims that immigrants are a drag on our economy. I think Canadians want to know whether the Leader of the Opposition approves this kind of language, and will he sanction the member, yes or no?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister claimed during the last election that the U.S. tariffs were an existential crisis, and I quote, requiring that he immediately be elected to, quote, negotiate a win and get a deal by July 21st. Well, a few days ago, he was asked about the state of those negotiations, and he said there are no issues of importance to discuss. In fact, he said, who cares? Mr. Speaker, we care. We care about the workers who've lost their jobs and don't have paychecks to make their mortgage payments. Why doesn't he care?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Monsieur le Président, on trouve un peu que ça dérape.
Mr. Speaker, things are getting out of hand on the other side of the House.
Repeating of these MAGA claims came in the wake of the member for Calgary Midnapore questioning the Prime Minister's loyalty to Canada. I think we can all agree that those are comments that no Canadian can take seriously. My question is, does the Leader of the Opposition take them seriously? If he doesn't, which he must surely not, would he tell the House and would he tell his member to apologize for those comments?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister already apologized to President Trump.
Yes,
It was one of the many areas where he backed down and capitulated after claiming that he would be elbows up. He promised he'd have a deal by July 21st. No deal. Promised to negotiate a win. No wins. Mr. Speaker, he promised elbows up. Elbows are gone. And now, when he's asked about the state of the talks, he says, who cares? Why should he care? Days after he met with the president, Brookfield got an $80 billion contract with the White House. Is that really what he cares about? Does he not care about the hard-working Canadians that are counting on him to keep his promise?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Bien sûr que le Premier ministre se soucie.
Of course, the Prime Minister cares about the well-being of Canadians, our workers and industries. And that is why we are carrying out constructive negotiations with the U.S. But, Mr. Speaker, things are getting out of hand on the other side. The member for Calgary Midnapore, even this very morning, was questioning whether the Prime Minister is loyal to Canada. can the leader of the official opposition sanction her for her comments? Or does he agree?
Prime Minister, who said, "Who cares?" when he was asked just over the weekend about the failure to keep his promises on trade since he took office. Not only has he failed to get the promised deal, but American tariffs on aluminum, autos, and steel have doubled. On forestry communities, they have tripled. The Prime Minister says, who cares? All of us on this side of the House care about the communities that are being emptied out in our forestry, the steel workers in Hamilton who don't have jobs to pay their mortgages. We care about those people. Why doesn't he?
The Honourable Minister responsible for Canada-U.S. trade relations.
Mr. Speaker, just because the Leader of the Opposition keeps repeating the same line over and over again doesn't make it real. Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition knows very well that our government was elected to defend Canadian workers and the Canadian economy. That's exactly what we did in a budget that was tabled in this House of Commons. The opposition decided not to support Canadian workers and provinces and territories and sectors under attack by unfair American tariffs. Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to support Canadian workers and the Canadian economy and negotiate a deal with the United States.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
And negotiate a deal with the United States, he repeats the same promise that the Prime Minister has been breaking for the last 8 months. He said he would have a deal by July 21st, no deal. He said he'd negotiate a win, no win. He said he wouldn't back down. All he's done is back down. He said he'd be elbows up. His elbows are missing. And now when he's asked about the fate of these thousands of jobs that rely on him keeping his word, he says, who cares? Isn't it clear by now that even days after he met the president, only Brookfield got the $80 billion deal? Is that what he meant when he promised he'd negotiate a win?
Right. Honorable Ministre des Finances.
Mr. Speaker, we care so much that...
On va recommencer là parce qu'on entend.
Let's start over. I can't hear anything. Let's just take a moment here. We'll let people calm down. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, it's only Monday. Look at how excited they are because they know there's good news in the budget, Mr. Speaker. That's what I see. Mr. Speaker, there's enough good news to go to Regina, to go to Winnipeg, to go to Moose Jaw, because you know what, Mr. Speaker? The people in Winnipeg understand you need to invest in infrastructure. The people in Moose Jaw understand you need to invest in our military. The people in Regina understand we need to invest in housing, Mr. Speaker. Canadians understand that we need to invest in this country. On this side of this house, we will always fight for Canadians because every day is a good day to fight for Canadians.
L'honorable député de Belleuil.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, I learned with shock that during his trip to the United Arab Emirates, the Prime Minister of Canada gave up on the idea that
what the hell?
Canadian diplomacy and international relations are feminist. Will this government confirm today that gender equality is no longer a value promoted by Canada? Because I can state that gender equality is a Quebec value.
Secrétaire parlementaire à la ministre des Affaires étrangères.
L'engagement du Canada envers l'autonomisation des femmes et des filles, la réalisation de l'égalité des sexes, la condamnation de toutes les formes de discrimination et l'élimination de la violence sexiste est inébranlable. Cela ne changera jamais. Comme la ministre l'a souligné dans son discours.
Dû l'interprétation, est-ce que...
Apologies from the interpreter. The microphone was off. Interpretation will now resume. It's working now. Yes, it's working now. Let's start over from the beginning. Mr. Speaker, let me be very clear. Canada's commitment to women's and girls' empowerment supporting gender equality, condemning all forms of discrimination, and eliminating sexist violence. Our commitment to that is unshakable, and that will never change. As the minister stated in her speech at the UN, Canada's foreign policy will be guided by three principles: defense and security, economic sovereignty, and our values. Speaking of values, feminism is a fundamental value of our government and is a key portion of our foreign policy. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly.
Ça sent le loup.
Well, I see that there is a lot of discomfort on the other side of the House. I can see that the team on the other side is having to work very hard to do something about the gaffe committed by the Prime Minister. The idea that we need to fight for a better world, the dramatic weight of the message of what he said on the international stage, is this not rather a matter of pleasing the sexist regime in the UAE? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I just spoke about values. Feminism is a fundamental value of our government and a key portion of our foreign policy. As we continue to diversify our trade relationships, and as we continue to create opportunities for our workers, the Prime Minister has restated his commitment to fighting sexist violence and inequality, both within Canada and abroad. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, this is the art of speaking out of both sides of your mouth. We get the occasional remark about supporting feminist values, but actually, internationally, the message is that Canada no longer cares about gender equality. And as though by coincidence, that's at the very time when the Prime Minister is hoping to receive tens of billions of dollars from the United Arab Emirates. How can that be explained? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I'm trying to be very, very clear. Canada's commitment to the empowerment of women and girls, the realization of gender equality, condemning all forms of discrimination and eliminating sexist violence is an unshakable commitment, and that will never change. As the Minister stated at the UN, and I mentioned this earlier, Canada's foreign policy will be guided by three principles, including values. And speaking of values, as I said, feminism is a key value of our foreign policy.
Honourable Member for Oxford.
The Prime Minister said he was a master negotiator and looked our auto workers in the eyes, promising a deal with the U.S. But now that he's failing, he's shrugging it off, saying, it doesn't matter. Who cares? And it's not a burning issue. Well, he's wrong, because it is a burning issue for Denise, an auto worker in Oxford who is losing her job, and thousands of others who don't know how they'll make ends meet. So why doesn't the Prime Minister care about the same jobs he promised he would protect?
Yeah, way to go, The Honourable Minister responsible for Canada-US trade.
Mr. Speaker, this government is actively involved with the sectors of the economy that are facing the most pressure from the unjustified 232 tariffs. This includes, obviously, auto workers. It includes workers in the steel and aluminum industries and the softwood lumber industry. Mr. Speaker, we've already taken steps to support those workers and those businesses. My colleagues should be excited that there's more good news coming in our government's effort to support those industries as we navigate through a trade circumstance that Canada didn't create, and we're not going to sign any deal like the Leader of the Opposition.
The Honourable Member for Oxford.
He's actively doing absolutely nothing for our workers. The Prime Minister literally campaigned on getting a deal with the U.S., but now since he's failing, he's brushing it off. He says, who cares, Mr. Speaker? Well, the thousands of auto workers who are losing their jobs, they care. The tens of thousands of spin-off workers who won't be able to pay their bills, pay their mortgage, feed their families, they care. Canadians do care, Mr. Speaker. So how can the Prime Minister look these workers in the eyes and tell them that their livelihoods aren't a burning issue?
That's right. The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Family.
Mr. Speaker, it's pretty rich for the member opposite to say that he cares about people like Denise, workers who are benefiting from work sharing, Mr. Speaker, supporting the very auto employers that he speaks about, Mr. Speaker, to retain a skilled workforce. Guess what? They voted against Denise, Mr. Speaker. They voted against Canadians who are benefiting from the measures, not just in Budget 2025, but that we've put into place since this attack on our economy. And Mr. Speaker, let me be clear, we'll be with workers like Denise. These guys are voting against them every day.
The honourable member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister promised a U.S. trade deal by the 21st of July. He called himself a master negotiator. He failed. And now he says he doesn't have a burning issue to talk to the U.S. President. Meanwhile, Windsor auto workers, the Stellantis, Ford, and the small businesses that supply them have a real burning issue with layoffs, shifts being cut, and a Christmas full of worry. Will the Prime Minister look these workers in the eye and tell them their jobs and their kids' futures are not a burning issue for him?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Industry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the honourable member knows, this government, the Minister of Industry, and all of us on this side are fighting every day for those jobs in Windsor and across southwestern Ontario. I want to quote from the Mayor of St. Thomas, Joe Preston. This mayor can't stop smiling. Generations in the future can stay here, have a job that pays well enough to buy a home in St. Thomas and become part of a really vibrant community. That's thanks to new investments that are being made in the sector in St. Thomas and across southwestern Ontario.
The honourable member for Windsor West.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are sick of waiting. Windsor has one of the highest unemployment rates in the country. Families are worried about bills, factories being idled, and a real trade war. Okay? But the Prime Minister himself said, who cares? And, well, Conservatives care. Windsorites care. So when will this Prime Minister treat Windsor workers like their jobs matter and take urgent action to protect their paychecks and their families? For once and...
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The urgent action comes from actually building the kinds of vehicles and the kinds of batteries and the kinds of equipment that Canadians increasingly are investing in. That's why we have the Gigafactory in southwestern Ontario. We have the Nexstar plant, which is manufacturing, as we speak, batteries for the very vibrant economy in this part of in this sector, and we look forward to the honourable member coming on board with that.
Hear, hear.
Honourable member for Caribou, Prince George.
The Prime Minister was asked when he last spoken with President Trump over the ongoing trade negotiations. He literally looked in the camera and said, who cares?
Unbelievable.
It doesn't matter, not a burning issue. Let me tell you, who cares? The over 3,000 forestry workers in Caribou, Prince George that are out of work. The communities that are being crushed by the softwood tariffs. Communities where jobs are disappearing and mills are closing. Families are paying the price for his failure. And the Prime Minister says, who cares? When will the Prime Minister start fighting for the workers he's abandoned?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, good news. We will be announcing additional supports for the forestry sector in the coming days. We've already announced $1.2 billion in supports for the industry. We're working hard. We're talking with the industry every day. I will be speaking with the leaders of the industry again tonight, and we will have a new set of supports by the end of the week, Mr. Speaker.
Excellent. Excellent. Member for Caribou, Prince George.
More supports. They don't want charity, they want their jobs. The Prime Minister literally said he doesn't care and it doesn't matter. Are you kidding me?
Right.
Seriously. Over 30 mills have closed in the province of British Columbia, 14 in mine. You know who cares and who matters? Little Lucas, 10 years old in 100 Mile Elementary School, when he couldn't hold back the tears and was talking about his family that lost their jobs. Why doesn't the Prime Minister fly to my riding and tell his family, look him in the eyes and tell them they don't matter?
Exactly. The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, like Lucas, I lived in a forestry town. I know what it feels like. I know how important these workers are. That's why we've announced $1.2 billion in support. That's why we're meeting with the leaders of the industry today, and that's why we'll be announcing another set of supports for the industry later this week. We have a trade war, Mr. Speaker. He should wake up.
minutes of everybody's porridge this morning. Holy smokes.
Who cares? The honourable member for Tubik-Mactaquac.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister once said he was a master negotiator who could secure a deal with President Trump by July. He failed and now shrugs it off, saying who cares, and that he doesn't have a burning issue to speak with the President about. Well, I can help him. New Brunswickers care because 93% of our exports go to the U.S. The longer this issue goes unresolved, the more uncertainty there is for New Brunswick's forestry workers. You tell that to the people who live in Florenceville, Bristol, or in Plaster Rock, or in Nakawik. They certainly do care, and they want a government that responds. When will the Prime Minister secure a resolution and meet with our closest neighbor?
The Honourable Minister responsible for Canada-US trade.
Mr. Speaker, it might be useful to remind our colleague from New Brunswick that this government had been engaged in constructive and extensive negotiations with the American administration, and we were pursuing a deal that we believed would be in the interests of Canadian workers and the Canadian economy and the Americans as well. Mr. Speaker, President Trump decided to suspend those negotiations, and while he did that, Mr. Speaker, is my colleague suggesting that the government do nothing to support those very workers he talked about? Good news. We're not going to do that. We're going to support those workers and stand up for those industries.
L'honorable député de Montcalm.
The honourable member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, let's talk about Brookfield, the Prime Minister's company that he still holds shares of within a blind trust. The ethics commissioner created an ethics screen for the Prime Minister, which is managed by one of his advisors, Michael Sabia, who also held Brookfield shares but sold them to protect his Prime Minister. So if Mr. Sabia could sell his shares to protect the Prime Minister from any hint of a conflict of interest, why can't the Prime Minister do the same? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, as my colleague knows very well, parliamentarians and upper officials have some of the strictest ethics rules in the world. The Prime Minister has always met all the rules, as we all have, and will continue to do so. The Honourable Member for Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, the highest position of government requires the highest level of transparency. As long as the Prime Minister is both a shareholder and a decision maker, there will be concerns. For example, in October 2024, the Prime Minister contributed to moving the headquarters of Brookfield from Toronto to New York, and 7 months later at the G7, he announced that companies headquartered in the U.S. would no longer have to pay the global minimum 15% tax to fight tax avoidance. How much money did the Prime Minister let Brookfield save, money which didn't end up being gathered for the public coffers? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has been following one of the strictest ethics codes in the world, so he's not doing anything for Brookfield by definition. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. We should remember that during the campaign, the Prime Minister said he was a great negotiator who was going to get rid of the tariffs before July 21st. But now it's the 24th of November, and the negotiations are completely stuck. And then, when asked if there were more negotiations, he said, who cares? He said that there were no urgent issues. But aluminum sector workers do care. Can the Prime Minister look at them straight in the eyes and tell them that their job doesn't matter and no one cares about it? The Honourable Minister responsible for Canada-US trade. Mr. Speaker, once again, my colleague knows very well that our government cares deeply about taking all necessary measures to protect the aluminum industry, aluminum workers, and other sectors that we named a few moments ago. As he knows, President Trump decided to suspend negotiations. Even though, from our perspective, these negotiations would have allowed us to reach an agreement that would have been in the interests of these workers. So as long as the U.S. refuses to negotiate, we will be there to protect those industries. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, since the arrival of this Prime Minister, not only have aluminum tariffs remained in place, but in fact they've doubled. Quebec produces 90% of Canadian aluminum. And in my region, in the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, 30,000 direct and indirect jobs depend on that sector. Those workers need these paychecks to house and feed themselves. How is it that the Prime Minister says that he doesn't care?
To the Minister of Industry.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As my colleague knows very well, we have been fighting these tariffs with our Strategic Response Fund. We also have our Canadian procurement strategy in order to support these sectors and use their products in national interest projects. And we hope that on the other side of the House, they will support us.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton East, Stoney Creek.
When the Prime Minister was asked this weekend whether he had spoken to Trump about trade, his response was, "Who cares? And it's not a burning issue." Well, I can tell you who does care. Conservatives care, and so do the thousands of Hamilton steelworkers and manufacturing workers that go to bed every night wondering if they'll have a job in the morning. How can the Prime Minister look at Hamilton steelworkers in the eye and tell them that their job security isn't a burning issue?
The Honourable Minister of Dogs and Families.
Well, I think, Mr. Speaker, the steelworkers would be pretty disappointed if they knew that that Conservative Member of Parliament keeps fighting against the very measures that this government is putting in place to save our steel sector, Mr. Speaker. I was at Algoma Steel just a few months ago working with that company and its workers to make sure they have the liquidity so that they can find new markets, protect those jobs, ensure their workers are trained and attached to the workforce. These are concepts these Conservatives can't even understand, Mr. Speaker, because they keep voting against the very people that sent them here.
The Honourable Member for Hamilton East, Stoney Creek.
Mr. Speaker, that is a 30-second admission of guilt and failure on this government. A response of who cares is a terrible attempt to downplay the important trade deal, how important a trade deal is for Canadian steel and manufacturing. The steel workers of Hamilton want an answer. They want a deal where they give them job security, pay their bills, and feed their families. A deal that was promised to them July 21st. So on behalf of the Canadian steel and manufacturing workers, when will the Prime Minister deliver on his promise and get a deal done?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Labour.
Mr. Speaker, I met with workers from Ingersoll, forestry workers in BC, and I've met with steel workers in that member's riding. Our message is consistent. We'll be there for workers. We'll be there for their families. My question for the member is, why did he vote against the budget? The budget provides supports for all of these industries, but they like to come in here, perform for the camera, Mr. Speaker, but we're doing the work. We're going to defend our country.
Thanks, Honourable Member for Regina Luban.
These Liberals think Canadians should be satisfied with begging for scraps from their table. This Prime Minister said he'd be a master negotiator. He said he'd get a deal done with Trump by July 21st. He failed. Now he says, who cares? There is no burning issue. Well, Conservatives care, and so do the members of USW 5890. They're the hardworking men at Interpro Steel in Regina, and they care about their jobs. So how can this Prime Minister look them in the eye and say their jobs that feed their family aren't a burning issue?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Industry.
We're going to defend our workers by having a $5 billion strategic response fund.
That's right.
That party voted against that.
That's
We're
right.
going to defend our workers by having a Buy Canadian policy, the most ambitious Buy Canadian policy on record. This party opposed that. We're always going to be there for our workers. The question is that party going to be on their side?
The Honourable Member for Sudbury.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians support our efforts to diversify Canadian trade. That's why our government is on a mission to double non-U.S. exports over the next decade and to unleash $1 trillion in new investments in Canada. Because every door that the Prime Minister opens means more opportunities for the businesses in my riding to reach new markets, grow their business, and create jobs in Sudbury. Can the Minister of International Trade update Canadians on the landmark investments delivered by the Prime Minister and why leadership on the world stage matters?
Great question. Honourable Minister of International Trade.
For important
question and her tireless work. What began in 2014, the Canada-UAE Investment Agreement, this government finished in just months, leading to our Prime Minister securing the single largest investment commitment of $70 billion, Mr. Speaker. We are now elevating our relationship by negotiating a trade deal to cut tariffs, remove red tape, and boost Canadian exports to the UAE. We are building new international relationships to grow trade, attract investments, to build the fastest growing economy in the G7. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
Every dollar the Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of Canadians, driving up the cost of everything. Food inflation on baby formula is up 84% in 8 years. Formula is one of the top stolen food products in Canada, and it is now kept under lock and key in many places in Canada. I heard from Sierra, a Manitoba mom, who knew she was buying stolen baby formula, but she did it anyways because she had no other choice. Does the Prime Minister care that parents can't afford to buy baby formula?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we have taken and we are taking action to fight food insecurity. This is why, among other measures, we're making the National School Food Program permanent to ensure more children have access to healthy meals at school. This also represents over $800 in savings for families on their grocery bills. We introduced a middle-class tax cut. We've introduced dental care. We have early learning and child care arrangements with provinces across the country, bringing costs down by thousands of dollars. We are there for families. I'd encourage the members opposite to support these measures as well.
The Honourable Member for Fort McMurray, Cold Lake.
Babies don't go to school. What's their problems? They don't even listen. This is about baby formula, not school food. The Liberal programs aren't working and they're making it worse. Families are switching to cow milk and solids earlier than doctors recommend because they have no other choice. They can't afford baby formula and they don't want their children to starve under these Liberal policies. Does the Prime Minister care that families are making tough choices because they refuse to act?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, this government is investing in children and infants, children of all ages. Not only did we create the Canada Child Benefit, families received it last week. We also committed to $10 a day childcare spaces across the country. Parents in my riding are saving over $10,000 a year for their kids. But don't take my word for it. Let me tell you about what a parent said at Andrew Fleck Children's Services. They said, we've been able to have healthier meals at homes and start saving for post-secondary education with early learning and childcare. Without this extra funding, it would have been impossible to survive and live in our current house. That's the difference that
The Honourable Member for Cambridge.
The Liberal government is the costliest in Canadian history, and hard-working families are paying the price. In my community, people tell me they're working hard and saving up, but they're still walking out of the grocery store with half a cart for twice the price. Demand at the Cambridge Food Bank is up 114%, and 1,000 new families are turning to it for the first time. The culprit is simple. It's the Liberal industrial carbon tax on farmers and fertilizer that gets baked into every loaf of bread and every slice of meat on the shelves. Why is the Prime Minister insisting on not only keeping the industrial carbon tax, but raising it when Canadians already can't afford to feed their kids?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
We're back with the imaginary taxes again, Mr. Speaker. We're back with the imaginary taxes. There is no tax on food. Farms are largely, if not totally, exempt from the industrial carbon tax. Even their favorite Twitter guy, the food professor, says that there is no incidence on food prices from the matters that the member mentions. I would invite her to correct herself. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Cambridge.
Mr. Speaker, the best program is a good-paying job with low inflation. Yet after 10 years of this Liberal government, Canadians have neither. The same government that created this mess now wants applause for pretending to fix it. But more government and more taxes only mean more inflation for Canadians. Food prices have climbed nearly 40% faster here in the U.S. and faster than wages can keep up. 4 out of 5 Canadians say food is their biggest budget stress, and 30% are now forced to choose between heating their homes or feeding their families. This Prime Minister refuses to listen and keeps hiking inflationary taxes that send people to the food bank. Why is the Prime Minister forcing Canadians to choose between going cold or going hungry?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Mr. Speaker. Perhaps a better question is why the Conservatives keep on pointing to imaginary taxes as they go forward. Let's be clear. There is no food packaging tax. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. There is no food packaging tax. Beyond that, the industrial carbon price does not add to the cost of food. This has been done, study after study proves that point. But if they want to support Canadians, I hope that they will support the programs we put forward, and I hope that they will fight climate change, because that is actually one of the major causes for the increased cost of food.
The honourable member for Terra Nova, the Peninsula.
Every dollar this Prime Minister spends is either taxed into the pockets of Canadians or from printed and borrowed money, driving up inflation and driving up the cost of everything in Canada. In PEI, the University Food Bank usage is up 60%, and it's the same old story right across Atlantic Canada. Yet this Prime Minister is refusing to scrap his high, costly regulations that only makes it more expensive to fish, farm, and ship our food. Why is this Prime Minister increasing the industrial carbon tax, increasing the fuel tax, and making it even more expensive for Canadians?
Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Speaker, I was in my riding last weekend, and I spent time at a school in the riding. I served food.
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
From the top, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. I was in my riding last weekend, served food in a school, in my riding. The educators, the administrators all spoke about how important that program is to the 400 children in that school. I also want to remind the member opposite that I had many meetings in the riding with constituents, with progressive conservative business owners who were thanking me for the budget that is investing in this country, that is building this country. We have solutions. I will not play this political rhetoric.
The honourable member for Edmonton West.
This Prime Minister's costly credit card budget pulses inflationary spending and debt onto our children and our grandchildren. Canadians are putting nearly 50% more on credit cards for basic living expenses than just 10 years ago. And now Fitch Ratings warns the government has blown past its own fiscal anchors and says finances, quote, run a high risk of further deterioration. How many more red warning lights need to start flashing before the Prime Minister stops treating taxpayers like a limitless credit card?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, the only word the opposition seems to know is no. It's time for them to take yes for an answer. We said yes to investing in our businesses and entrepreneurs. They said no. We said yes to a national food program. They said no. We said yes to affordable homes, investing in our military. They said no. Mr. Speaker, it's time for them to say yes to Canada and build this country strong.
The honourable member for Edmonton West.
Is sounding the warning. Yes, Canadians are drowning in credit card bills after a decade of Liberal inflation. And yes, the Parliamentary Budget Officer says the Liberals have abandoned their own debt-to-GDP anchor, the very same anchor they say protects their AAA rating. The PBO further concludes that the Liberals have almost no chance of achieving their declining deficit-to-GDP ratio. It's no wonder the costly Prime Minister wants to fire the PBO. How many more fiscal watchdog reports have to come out for the Prime Minister to rein his inflationary spending?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are not buying what that Conservative leader and his party are selling. In fact, 70% of Canadians have no confidence in him to lead. Last week, we passed an historic budget by Canadians, for Canadians, so we will never be reliant on one country again. It's time for that member to put down the talking points, get on board with us, and let's build Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary-Crowfoot.
Mr. Speaker, this credit card budget loads today's spending onto tomorrow's taxpayers. Fitch Credit Rating, which rates the government's credit, says the Liberal government frequently blows through its fiscal anchors and has, quote, a high risk of further deterioration. The Parliamentary Budget Officer says the government abandoned its previous fiscal anchor and that was there to preserve its AAA rating. So how many more disastrous independent reports is it going to take for this Prime Minister to rein in his spending?
Good question. L'honorable ministre des Finances.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
We'll take nonsense from these guys. But Kevin Page, Mr. Speaker, a former parliamentary budget officer, will give them some lessons. And I quote, "We need to focus on growth. We need capital investment to boost innovation, improve infrastructure, diversify trade. We live in a dangerous time and we must meet our NATO spending." I believe Parliament should approve the budget plan, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we will fight for Canadians because every day is a good day to fight for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, the $78 billion deficit is dangerous. The Liberals have maxed out Canadians' credit cards. Experts, including Fitch Ratings, which rates the government's creditworthiness, are warning us. Caution, there is a high risk of worsening the financial crisis in Canada. Even the Parliamentary Budget Officer, an impartial officer of the House of Commons, pointed out that this government is putting Canada's AAA credit rating at risk. Can someone get this Prime Minister to come to his senses and to stop spending? The Honourable Minister of Government Transformation. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We have the best fiscal situation of all G7 countries. We have the lowest debt to GDP ratio of all G7 countries. We have a AAA credit rating. Mr. Speaker, economists in this House are on this side of the House, and that's no coincidence. And I'm sure that deep within himself, the member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier was happy to see his colleagues hide behind the curtains so that the budget would pass, because it's a great budget. The Honourable Member for Limoilou. Mr. Speaker, our government has an ambitious budget with transformational investments in our transportation system. The Minister of Transport visited my riding in Quebec City to talk about these initiatives, especially at the port and the airport. But before that, the Minister visited the Magdalen Islands. Could the Minister provide more details on the important announcement he made there and what it means for the community? Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, indeed, I had a great time visiting there, announcing many transport investments all over Quebec, thanks to our budget. There are some great projects in Quebec, including expanding the runway on the Magdalen Islands. I was very happy to go to the Magdalen Islands and share that great news with them, and I thank them for their warm welcome, the people of the Magdalen Islands. But guess what, Mr. Speaker? The Bloc Québécois and the Conservatives voted against these projects, like expanding the Saguenay Port and the runway in the Magdalen Islands.
Justin Trudeau killed a pipeline in 2016 and backed a West Coast shipping ban. They now want credit for reversing their own damage. Reality finally caught up, and Canadians don't know which Prime Minister they might get. One day he's a climate crusader who rode himself into green stardom, and now he's scrambling to review the very projects he spent a decade sabotaging. Will this government admit that their keep-it-in-the-ground crusade strangled our economy, weakened our sovereignty, and left workers with the bill, or will he keep pretending that it wasn't all self-inflicted as they dance around a pipeline announcement? Yeah!
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I know the member opposite is nostalgic for the previous government, but that's not who's working right now. Canada will be a leading global energy superpower in both clean and conventional energy. We did not ask for this trade war, but we will win it. We got elected to build strong nation-building projects. We got elected to grow our economy. We got elected to reinforce Canadian autonomy and independence. We will do that in conjunction with Indigenous peoples and environmentally responsibly.
Honourable Member for Thornhill.
The Premier of Alberta is expecting an east-west pipeline. The media is also reporting on the announcement of an east-west pipeline, and the only ones who haven't said it are the ones who are directly responsible for it. They can't even utter the word pipeline. So I've got a simple question. Is the government in favor of an east-west pipeline, yes or no?
Yeah!
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, this government will look at any project, including a pipeline brought forward by a proponent. We have a process under C5 to look at it. When a pipeline comes forward, if the government of Alberta wants to bring it forward, we will look at it then.
Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
No matter how hard the days get for average Canadians, like the 2.2 million Canadians that go to a food bank every day, it's always a good day for Brookfield. And the latest good news for Brookfield is a $500 million contract with the European Space Agency, which is housed by property owned 50% by Brookfield. So why is it the priority of this government to line the pockets of the Prime Minister's former company with a $500 million contract when there's 2.2 million Canadians lining up at food banks because they can't afford to feed themselves and a 6.9% unemployment rate? Why?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Industry.
On this day when we have Jeremy Hansen, the Canadian astronaut, here with us, I'd like to quote from another astronaut, Marc Garneau. The best way for Canada to work with other countries, as we had with NASA since the 1960s. That's why Canada signed an agreement with the European Space Agency in the 1970s, as well as several bilateral agreements with other countries allowed us to fly Canadian hardware on their spacecraft in return for sharing the scientific results. Maintaining those relationships will continue to be important. This is what we do when we build Canada strong.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille. Mr. Speaker, Canada shows its strength when we act decisively and seize the world's opportunities. That matters for businesses in my riding of Rivière-des-Mille, but also for businesses all over Canada which want to grow and expand. It is clear that we are working to access new markets and get huge investments. Can the Minister share with Canadians the tangible investment that came from the Prime Minister's leadership?
No.
The Honourable Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, it's great to receive such a great question because the opposition doesn't seem to celebrate the successes in our economy. Meanwhile, our Prime Minister has announced $70 billion of investment in Canada. $70 billion of investment in our economy. And that's all thanks to our workers, their know-how, their experience. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we will always work to create a strong Canada and a strong Canadian economy. Let's all celebrate Canada together, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable-Lotbinière. To this Liberal Prime Minister, once a friend, always a friend. He's very attached, this Prime Minister, to his European and Brookfield roots. Meanwhile, Canadians have to take on debt to buy groceries. But what does the Prime Minister do? He gives $500 million to the European Space Agency to create jobs in Europe at the Harwell Science and Innovation Campus. And can you guess who owns 50% of the campus? You guessed it, Brookfield. Is this yet another coincidence, or is it more flim-flammery to make the Prime Minister's friends even richer? How can the Prime Minister let 600,000 Quebecers line up at food banks while he sends their money and their jobs to his friends in Europe?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Industry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a good time for space in Canada. There is even an astronaut among us today. We have a joint investment with Europeans, and that investment will grow the Canadian economy. Each dollar contributed by the European Space Agency generates $3 in sales. Also, on December 11th, members should join us so that our businesses can benefit from that.
Thank
you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians do want to diversify trade, but we want to diversify trade with democracies that share our values, that respect human rights. Now we're cozying up to People's Republic of China. I haven't heard they're starting to treat the Uyghurs well. I don't understand how we can want to do deals with countries like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates that right now has been caught with personnel carriers carrying out war crimes in Sudan. Do we trade away our values? Do we trade away our souls when we trade with those countries?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, respect for human rights, labour and the environment remain at the heart of our trade policies and our high standard trade agreements. Canada is deliberate and mindful when negotiating trade agreements, and we prioritize Canadian values. Building new trading partners around the world is an important driver to promote Canadian values, create jobs and encourage economic growth that works for everyone. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Je voudrais signaler aux députés.
I would like to note the presence of the winners of the 2025 Impact Prizes. Please hold your applause until we have listed all names.
Steckley, Jason Edward Lewis, Kamari Maxine Clark, Tara McGee.
Okay, so we're going to call it here. We've got a 19-minute break until committee. Committee link is in the chat there. I've put it in a few times, but there it is again in the chat. It's the Liberal Minister of Natural Resources, Tim Hodgson, and he's going to be in the committee for an hour to talk about these nation-building projects, specifically on how there's nothing in the supplementary estimates B, so very strange. Again, thank you so much to my 2 cents for joining the coffee support. Beyond, appreciate you with the 1, 2, 3 super chats, man. Really appreciate that. And just me, Nicole, with the super chat as well. We are going, like I said, we're going to take a bit of a break. We got 18 minutes until committee starts. So there is the link in chat again. And I will see you guys shortly. Thanks again. And if you just want to tune in for question period, we'll be live tomorrow again. Question period, same time. But committee, guys, let's take a bit of a break, and I'll see you guys in committee. Cheers, guys.